I think some of the habits and the ritual of Northern Soul are still very influential. But I think there are some key differences. I think that the Northern Soul, the height of Northern Soul, if we to call it that, I mean, it was first called Northern Soul in 1971. Up till then, it was called Rare Soul. If you say 71 onwards, so you're talking about the 1970s, the Northern Soul scene was all about music made in a particular city, around a particular city, Detroit, around a particular time, 1965, 1966. And so it was a backward-looking scene. It was looking back at an era. And it was also very fixed about and very purist. What happened in the 1980s was that it was all about new music. It was all about, it wasn't looking backwards. It was almost like every week was year zero. Every week was what is new. And we happened in the 80s to be around and listening for new things at a time when electronic music was in its infancy, there was lots of experimentation, and we were hungry for that. So we weren't looking back like Northern Soul was. And I think that is one key difference. And the other key difference is that we were eclectic. We weren't looking for the purest, platonic version of a particular sound, which I think Northern Soul has a tendency to do. We were actually grateful. I was grateful if I went into Eastern Bloc Records and they had music, the kind of which I'd never heard before. So, for example, that's why I love techno. But then when the kind of big Italo records came out, I loved that. I loved go-go. And also, I loved indie. And that eclecticism, I think, was an important part of what took the scene from being everyone in their little ghetto, being very purist, very specialist, which was great. You know, Colin Curtis's Tuesday night at Berlin was an amazing night. And I used to go. But I knew that what I would hear was the best of that kind of jazz that he would play. But then I'd leave there and I'd go to a psychedelic night at a club called the Playpen, also on a Tuesday night, and I'd hear people playing psychedelic rock music. So when I started DJing at the Hacienda, from my point of view, I was like, how can I bring all these disparate specialist people under one roof? And that's where the kind of eclecticism came in. And also the other thing that came in was the idea that nobody else was doing that. Nobody else had the ambition or the madness or the genius to say, let's be different to everywhere else and let's open up our minds. And if you look at the DJs who were around, if you look at my generation of the Hacienda DJs, John De Silva, Graham Park, Mike Pickering, we all came from a background where we would listen to indie music, and we would listen to electro, and we would listen to soul, and we would listen to hip hop. And I think that was a really important thing. We weren't dilettantes playing at it. We just loved lots of different things. And our idea of DJing was to win people over to something that they'd never heard before, and even a style of music they'd never heard before.